Okay, today I want to share you some of my experiences. I've been working in the digital world for 15 years. I spent half of my life in Germany and in Japan. And I spent my whole life as a pure geek. I'm a geek by heart. And we geeks are right now changing the world, if we do it right. Not me, maybe, but hopefully the other ones, but I'm trying my best. So I want to give you a bit of an inspiration of how we could change our thinking to make things better. Let's start with a small quiz to get our brains a bit juiced, if it works. Okay. I show you some slides. Think of, what do these slides have in common? Here, bullet trains, instant coffee, electronic calculator, and time travel, the concept of time travel. Any idea what they have in common? They were all invented in one way or the other by Japanese. I also didn't know that. But there's also one other thing they have in common. They were invented to make our life easier. Keep that in mind. Make our lives easier. I'm going to show you a number, I hope. 95%. This is an Accenture study. They checked 95% of all electronic products that were brought back to the shop, reported as broken, were actually working perfectly. So what is the broken part? It's you, it's me, it's the user. Why is that? It's because very often we are wired engineers. When we talk about invention, we want to make it better. More functions, more features. Nobody talks about making it easier. Actually, I'm German. In German, we have a great word for that. I'm going to show you that. Verschlimmbessern. This means trying to make something better, but you make it worse. I'm going to give you a good example. My mom. She's a role model for geeks. My mom and the microwave. When I talk to an engineer, my mom wants a microwave. What would he think of? Oh, she wants a better microwave. New function, new features. How about a triple core power processor in there? How about a dual mode heat mechanizing double power button? Sounds cool. When I ask my mom, Mom, what do you want? Well, I want a machine that heats up the food. So when I listen and I understand, my mom wants something that makes her life easier. That's all. And that's what we have to do. We have to start to listen. Not assume what people might think, but really listen. Listen deep. Think what the problem is, what we can do to solve the problem. And also listen. Read between the lines. What is the hidden intention? If you're married, you know what I'm talking about. So I call this actually what we have to learn. This is This is the art of listening, understanding, and anticipation. Having spent a lot of time in Japan, I realized Japanese companies are quite good at that. I'm going to give you a good example for that. It's about credit cards. Let's take a look at Japan. Japanese have the highest personal saving rate in the world. Japanese love shopping, be it offline, be it online. My wife can tell you about that, sorry. And they're one of the leading e-commerce nations in the world, one of the most mobile shopping nations in the world. So you would think, great, that's a perfect space for credit cards, especially for online. But as a foreign credit card executive puts it, he said, Japanese hate credit cards. Well, when you take a look at it, looking at the industrialized nations, in Japan, credit cards were really not popular for a long time. Why is that? Is it because they hate it? No. Let's listen. Let's ask Japanese why they hate it. Well, they don't hate it. They're just afraid. They're afraid that they have no control over their money, that they're running into debt. And running into debt in Japan is close to something totally immoral. So that was the issue. So taking the thinking of understanding, learning, anticipation, how can you solve that issue? I will explain it. It all started actually with this here. This is a commuter ticket. paper-based. Millions of Japanese use this every day to travel to work and back. In 2001, Japanese Rail started to offer this one. This is a near-field communication card replacing the paper-based ticket. It's pretty easy to use. I have one here. It's very easy to renew. It's very easy to go through the ticket gate, in, out. There's no danger of that thing getting stuck in the machine. For Japanese, that is super embarrassing. And people loved the idea. And pretty shortly, 10 million people switched from paper to this card. And then they offered more features on that. You could use it to buy things at the train station. Some snacks, coffee, something to smoke. In Japan, when you're at the train stations, there's small shop kiosks, vending machines. And that's great. You don't have to look for small money getting a Coke catching the train. No, you just use this card. Japanese loved the idea, and it was simple. And then a bit later, when Docomo released their feature phones with this chip already built inside the phone, they released an application. So you could use it on your mobile phone. Through the app, you could see how much money you're spending. You can set alarm when you're spending too much. It was really neat. You can even transfer money from your bank account to the card. And then 1 year later, Docomo did the big thing. What they did is they launched actually their own mobile credit card. Had a limit of 200,000 yen, and was working the very same way. You could check your limits, you can check how much money you're spending. It was very easy. And this removed the biggest concern of Japanese consumers, that they are not in control of how much money they are spending. Well, what was the result? I hope it works. Well, the result was 20 million Japanese switched to mobile credit cards. That's quite impressive. I want to give you one more example that took the world by storm. And this is a company from Kyoto in Japan, and I'm sure you heard of it. It's Nintendo. Nintendo released the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo DS. And both of these were actually based on a lot of consumer insights. They asked people, young, old, what do you want to do? What do you want to do about a game? What's your biggest worry about what you can't do? And they mentioned it's too complicated. And they do not only just want to play games. They want to learn languages. They want to learn how to draw. They listened very carefully what people really want and what they can do. And this is what they came up with. And they also came up with a new way of inputting. It's very, very simple. You just use a pen. My grandma can use a pen. We all can use a pen. They used a remote control device to play games, so everyone could start playing games or discover art, becoming an artist, learn a new language. And that was amazing. This opened a total new market because they started to listen to people. And even my mom, my grandma, they both have a Nintendo DS, they love it. And we, Christmas time, we play with the Wii, we play with my grandpa, bowling. It's really amazing. So there is something that I call the mantra of meaningful. And I hope we can see it here on the slide. Listen to users. Find out what the real problem is. Provide a solution. Try to make things as intuitive and as easy as possible, and provide simple steps. Don't expect users to take a giant leap. It's very important. Sure, Nintendo is a successful company, but they also had failures. When they were looking for the next generation Game Boy, do you know what they came up with? The Virtual Boy? Have you ever heard of that? I'm going to show you a picture, hopefully. This is the Virtual Boy. Fantastic. It's huge goggles, very heavy, gives you a very blurry monochrome picture, 3D-ish. And it was so heavy you couldn't carry it around. It had a tripod. Can you imagine yourself on the street with such a device? Nobody could. And they didn't sell at all. It was a big disaster for them. But they learned their lesson. And this brings me to another very important thing. And this is the art of failure. It's very important to fail. We all fail. Even the most successful companies in the world fail. It's important. And while I'm talking about game consoles, I want to show you another game console failure. And I want you to think if you know the company who's behind it. Okay. Any idea? Apple Computer. Never heard of it. This is actually a small Mac. It was launched in the 90s with a game controller, internet connection, some multimedia, CD-ROM drive built in. This was actually launched in Japan through Bandai. Bandai is one of the biggest game companies in Japan and toy companies. This was the first time Apple started to license a product to another company. And they also asked a small game company that was doing games for the Mac back then if they could put a title on that machine to sell it better. Well, all in all, it was a big disaster. Consumers couldn't understand what to do with the device. It looked so complicated. For the techies, it looked like a toy. The disaster was so big that the Bandai CEO had to resign. And the Apple CEO had to resign. One big reason was this machine. And the small game company was in real trouble. But they learned something from it. Apple stopped licensing business. They said, from now on, we want to be in full control of software and hardware. And this was the foundation for what we now know as Apple. This was the foundation for that comeback in the 90s. This was the foundation of the iMac, of the iBook. And the small game company, well, they cut the losses. They thought a bit about it. They realized that the game console market actually is interesting, but they need a real good partner if they want to be successful in the future. And it took until 2001 when they came on the market again. And the rest, I think, is part of gaming history. That was Halo. You see, even the big players, they fail. Even Apple is not pixel perfect. They all make mistakes. And I have one more mistake I want to share with you. Do you know what this one here is? This was Apple's personal digital assistant launched in the 90s with a big power-how. It had a handwriting recognition, wasn't working very well, pre-installed applications, you could do email, you could check your contacts, calendars, it had a built-in notebook. This is actually me holding it up. I had one, I loved it, I'm a geek, but nobody else did. So that was another big failure for Apple. When Apple killed the product, Steve Jobs himself said, we will never, ever produce something like that again. And they thought a bit about all the learnings they took out of that, and they came up with something much more brilliant. Can you guess what? The iPhone. Can you see the similarities between the Newton and the iPhone? Has the same DNA. So, this already brings me close to the end of my presentation. Think about fail. It's okay to fail. Everyone fails. If you don't fail, you cannot be successful. We talked about Angry Birds. Do you know how long it took Rovio until they launched Angry Birds? 51 applications. So failing is okay. The important part is that you learn from it. So there's this famous quote from my mom. My mom always says a mistake is an experience you have not learned from. So keep that in your mind. And this brings me actually to the end of the small journey today. What I want you to take home with you today, no matter if you're a student, a teacher, an entrepreneur, or an individual looking for more meaning, is this here. Listen. Listen to what other people have to say. Don't assume you know better. Understand what people have to say. Understand what they want. Understand how you can be part of the solution, what you can do to help them, how you can make things more meaningful. And also understand yourself. Where's your passion? What are you capable of? And start exploring. Explore what's around you. And explore new grounds. Explore what is possible. Explore yourself. Try new things. And please be ready to fail. And learn from all of this. Learn from others. Learn from the failures. Never stop learning. We should be students forever. Students of this great adventure we call life. And hopefully make this life more meaningful for everyone. Thank you very much.